Hello and welcome to the Wildly Beautiful Life podcast. I'm your host, Anne Marie Grace, and this is a space for coming back home to yourself, to your inner truth, to your natural design, and to the life that you're here to create. Here we're going to explore what it means to live well and live on purpose through a blend of soul, science, and meaningful connection. If you're ready to stop living on autopilot and intentionally start creating your own wildly beautiful life, then you're in the right place. And if you'd like to go deeper, please join me over on Substack at Thriving Through Connection, where we continue our journey together through videos, reflections, and a growing community walking this path together. I'm so excited to have you here. Let's jump into today's episode. Today on the podcast, I have Kristi de Young, a registered psychologist with a twist. Kristi has 20 years of experience from working in schools to running her own private practice, and she works at the intersection of psychology and spirituality, combining the science with the soul work. Kristi draws on the internal family systems as well as Jungian approaches, compassion-focused therapy, and transpersonal psychology to help people move beyond symptom management into genuine transformation. Kristi believes there's a layer beneath the anxiety and the people-pleasing and the daily performance of fine, and that's exactly where she works. She's based here in Melbourne, Australia with me, and she works with clients across Australia via telehealth. This is a great conversation where we really delve into the different voices that are at the table. Whether that's through the lens of psychology or the lens of astrology, it's a fascinating conversation, and I know you're going to get a lot out of it. Let's jump in. So, Kristi, I'm so excited to have you here with me today. No one would know, but Kristi and I are both Americans who have transplanted to Melbourne, Australia. Our paths crossed more than 20 years ago at the tennis. So Kristi was sitting in a row behind me, and I heard her American voice, and I was pretty fresh off the boat, and I was looking for connection at that point in time, and there was Kristi. And so we got to chatting, had a good friendship, and then our lives went different directions, and in recent past, we've come across each other again. Kristi is now a spiritually integrated counseling psychologist, and we have had some interesting chats, and I wanted her to come onto the podcast and speak specifically around this idea of how she uses the parts therapy to help her clients better understand themselves. And I saw a link between how astrology has similar voices at the table. So we're going to see where this conversation goes. But before we get started, Kristi, I'd love for you to just say hi and tell everyone a little bit about yourself, who you are, the work you're doing in the world, what lights you up, why you're here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me, Anne Marie. Yes, I think it's very synchronicitous that our paths crossed. So I feel like it was very much meant to be our initial meeting and then again reconnecting with you. So that's been a lovely transformation. A bit about me. Yeah, I don't even never know how to answer that question. I'm a Texan at heart, living in Melbourne now 23 years, working as a psychologist in private practice for quite a long time. So being a psychologist for about 20 years now, working with clients from adolescence up through the lifespan. I think my oldest client at the moment is 82. It's quite lovely, though, to see the parallels and patterns that we go through at every age and stage of life are the same in a lot of ways. I'm a mom of 3 boys, a very busy, full life outside of the office as well. Yeah, I'm avid and I love fitness and yoga and all things, I guess, spiritual transformation, a little bit witchy at heart, those kinds of things. That's me in a nutshell, and I think maybe covers it.
Beautiful, Kristi. So can you share with people how you were drawn into, because 20 years is a long time, and I know we know that you're a generator, right? And generators have the drive and determination to, they find something that lights them up, they just deep dive and that's their path. Whereas for me, it's all about this interests me, that interests me, and keep juggling as a manifesting generator on lots of things. So talk to me about where was the book for you? What brought you into psychology? And I know that you're nuancing now to more spiritual integration within that space, but just walk us a little bit through your story.
Look, I started out, I think the way most people in traditional psychology would start out, which is like that CBT, the cognitive behavioral therapy and mindfulness around, it's called acceptance and commitment therapy. I think you have to start there. There's just no other option really with your learning, but always been really pulled to what's called humanist psychology. So existential psychology of why we're here in this, as I said to you, in the skin suit. What is the job of being human and how do I create meaning and purpose in my life? So that's always been sprinkled in the background. And I actually did an undergraduate degree in religion. At the time, I didn't know why. I just accidentally did it. The way you study in America, you get enough credits and they're like, by the way, you get a major on your degree. I was like, wow, that sounds fun. Don't know what I'm going to do with that. And now what's interesting is now I can see the meaning that was supposed to be in that. So I've always enjoyed learning about like the history of things, so the history of religions, where all of these, if it's Buddhism or Hinduism, Judaism, Jainism, there's just so many isms out there, and how different parts of the world might look at answering different philosophical questions about what it means to be human and why we're here. And I guess how to resolve dilemmas that we face in being human and the struggles and the challenges that come along with being human in this skin suit. So that's the Cree history. And then when I get into actually becoming a psychologist, finding the right modality that worked with most clients, I wasn't really ever happy with just CBT or ACT. I found and I stumbled upon like some somatic practices, polyvagal theory. I did schema therapy. And then I found what in the therapy space is called internal family systems, IFS, with what she just said earlier is parts work. So parts work is looking at the self as being multiple and resolves a lot of conflict that we have with not knowing who we are. At different times, I feel like I'm one part or another part. And that would be the main way that I work now, is that IFS model of the self, and peppered with a heavy dose of compassion-focused therapy as well.
Beautiful. So for people who haven't ever come across internal family systems or don't know what part work is, can you just give them a general view of what?
So parts work, at the heart of parts work is this idea that we are multiple. So at any given, and I'll give you an example. It's not hard to think of how a part of me, you hear it in our normal language, a part of me wants to go to the party, a part of me doesn't. So we can hold the paradox so that we know what it feels like to be pulled in two directions. Now, in parts work, there's this idea that I have multiple parts, and I like to think of the idea of boardroom. So I draw for clients a big giant circle in the middle of a piece of paper, and I might write their name in the middle. And this is Anne Marie Incorporated. This is the business of you. And around that table are multiple seats. And there might be a part that is the anxious part. There might be a part that is the sad part. There might be a part that's the confident part or the strong part. The idea in therapy, and in therapy, I use it by trying to figure out who are the parts of you, who shows up the most, who are the boardroom members, and then who's also not allowed in the meeting. There's some people that we don't want to, that we call exiles, or there's parts of ourselves that we really don't feel safe enough yet to let be in the meeting room. So therapy is an IFS. Who is around the table? I'm getting to know you and understanding what makes you tick. What are the parts? What are the things that matter to you? So love, I might have a really loving part. So they're not negative or positive or good or bad. They just simply are. Who are the parts of me? Who's not allowed in the room? And I want to get to know that. And we try to reclaim those parts. We try to make it safe enough to sit with those exiled parts. And then I also, my favorite part of IFS, and I know that this would resonate with you as well, is what's called self-energy. So the major part of IFS and parts work is at the center and the heart of all of us is something with a capital S, self, a core being, an essence, dare I say soul, that is in all of us, that is good. And it is, I love this because it's a choice to believe. And I choose to believe that at the core of all humans is a goodness, a nugget. I call it the little golden nugget, like the little golden light that is capable of wonderful, beautiful, kind, compassionate. There's 8 C's of IFS and 5 P's. Don't get too bogged down in the vocab, but this like nugget of goodness. And that gets covered up by what happens to us in life. Social conditioning or the stories we are told about ourselves, traumas that we experience that might dim our light or we lose access to it. So in therapy, I'm helping people remember who they always were before life happened to them. And that's why that's my favorite part. And Emery, the beauty, everybody's got that. And everybody, literally everyone. And I think that's what makes this work gratifying, is helping people just remember who they always were.
So there's a couple of things there. First, in my mind, I remember when you first talked to me about art or about IFF.
Artwork.
And in my mind, I pictured the boardroom table as a long rectangular boardroom table, right? Not a circle. And so as you said it just now, I'm like, a circle, just like zodiac, right? Just so you got the different spheres or the houses that represent different parts of our lives. And then each individual zodiac sign has its own flavor, right? So there is the zodiac part that's the really confident part, and the part that's the strong part, and the part that's the analytical and part. I can see so much overlap. And then I wonder, is there any basis in IFS that comes through? Because astrology has been around for 5,000 years. Is there any connection?
Look, I have to say, probably not ostensibly, not on the surface, but Richard Schwartz is the man that came up with IFS. There's nothing new under the sun, right? Everything is something else recycled with a different messenger. But
yeah,
he's pretty out there. He's a wild psychiatrist now in America. He really believed in ancestral trauma, like lineages. He believes in spirit teams. He believes under deep guided meditation, we can access other realms and otherworldly things. So maybe, right? This has come to him through another source, from source, potentially, then absolutely, I don't see why not. Once you start seeing pattern that overlap different modalities or different philosophies, that's when you start to kind of go, maybe we're onto something.
Yeah, for sure. So Carl Jung, who is huge in modern psychology, he actually read charts for all of his clients. So his daughter was in the background actually providing him the client. And there's some comment, I won't get the quote exactly, but it's basically like psychology is going to become a dinosaur if astrology is not woven into it. But the modern system doesn't. There's a lot of skepticism or lack of belief around astrology these days. Maybe getting back to it a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that Western intellectualism and behaviorism and this need for science and provability, the pendulum swung to that. Maybe it needed to, I don't know. But I think absolutely my feeling of what's going on right now is the pendulum's swinging back again, and we're much more open to, there's multiple ways of knowing things. And even other podcasts I've listened to, I don't know how to say her name right, Maya Bialik Blossom from the 90s. She's this hardcore scientist, and she's now interviewing Richard Grant. She's interviewing the telepathy tapes people. Like, when science, my view on this is science can't prove and none of this isn't true. So we need to be open to all understanding. Science to me is always just catching up with spirituality and woo.
Yeah, amazing. I like that.
Yeah. And so why not be open to it? If I don't know, why not? And what does it cost? So I'll explain this way to clients. I was like, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But what's the cost of believing in these things?
Yeah.
Does it cause me more suffering, or do I feel relief and peace? So if I'm made a crossroads of two different ways to feel, which one do I want to feel? Why do I deliberately choose suffering?
Yeah.
And then they're quiet. And then they're like, oh, so I can choose. I'm like, absolutely. So what do you want to believe? And that just opens this door that we can walk through, is actually, oh, so I get to choose what I want to believe, and let's go. And then it's not up to me, right? I'm client led. I don't tell people what to believe. I spread it out in a buffet. These are all the things that we can believe in the world. What do you want? Because then we've never been told that before. We've been given the book that we were supposed to read and believe. But you would say, what if that doesn't match up with who I am? My chart, my stars.
Yeah.
And so I start the journey of helping them figure out what they want to believe with what fits for them. And then I send them to people like you to go now tell them how to do it in the stars and their charts and their gene keys. And yeah, so I love working collaboratively too with people who are way better experts in other spaces that I'm not. So yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about the IFS approach, where you talked about the exiled person at the table. I want to understand that better and for people to be able to recognize within themselves, oh, yeah, there's that part of me that I don't want there, but is there. Like, how do we greet them and welcome them and learn from them?
And this is the hardest part of therapy. This is the part that's uncomfortable. We don't like it because there's parts that are exiled because they're painful. They hurt. And they hurt in our bodies. They hurt in remembering. They're often there. They're often much younger parts. I like to talk to parts in terms of their age. So you'll often hear me go, oh, whoa, when you just said that, which part was that? That was my anxiety. How old did that feel? And so it's intuitive as well. They're like, oh, I just say, just name an age. Roughly, this isn't science. It's 5. Okay. How does 5 feel? And how do you think you got that belief? And where did that come from? So I feel like an archaeologist. I'm just digging up the past. So the parts that are exiled are usually parts that weren't safe to feel because I didn't have the understanding, the ability, or I was alone. And I learned through parenting or conditioning or schooling or coaching or some experience that it's not okay to have that part. So I'll give you a really simple example. It's imperfect me. So if I find a perfectionist part around the boardroom, one that wants, this might be a bit familiar to myself, a perfectionist part might say something at the table. It's like I'm not allowed to make a mistake. So the little me that is standing outside the boardroom door is the part of me that made a mistake. So imperfect me. So we try to reclaim that. Now there might be a specific memory attached, that one time that I failed a test. So I would talk to that memory and we'd go back and look at it and bring them back in the room. And how can I know now that it's safe to make a mistake? Because what happens is we get stuck at whatever age that was. It was like, say, 7. I got embarrassed in first grade because I failed a math test. I'm stuck at 7. When I'm triggered at making a mistake, all of a sudden I'm 7. I forgot about the 46 years of my life where I've made mistakes and it's been fine. So I help them remember there's other boardroom members or there's there's core being that can now handle making a mistake because it's going to be okay. It wasn't okay for 7 to make a mistake. It wasn't safe. And that's real and that's true. So I also spend time with 7 going, I'm sorry it was so hard. This is where compassion comes in. It shouldn't have been that hard. I'm sorry that bad thing happened. It's not your fault. That is my favorite part of therapy because we're healing old wounds, called a corrective emotional experience. We're able to give ourselves in real time in the room, usually with clients' eyes closed down. I'm able to get them into almost like a meditation to heal the wounds of their own younger selves in the room. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. In the coaching sphere, I do inner child meditations, right? It's very similar where you invite that part of yourself that didn't feel safe, that had that core memory of disconnect or repression or whatever it might have been, and then let them feel that and know that the older version of the self is there and is capable of taking.
Yeah. And there's some speeding through it with you now, but there's a lot of buildup to that to make it and convince each other and the self that it is safe now. So it is very gentle. I don't want people to think it's not whiplash. It is also, we need to make it safe to feel those things now. There's a somatic component to the work of how do I know I can handle that big feeling in my body right now? So we also might practice techniques around hand on heart, hand on belly, or have you heard of havening? There's this technique called havening. So we might do some of that in the room, or we might just, I call treat it out. We might just do, we can actually ask parts. This is fascinating. I can say to a part, can you come in, but can you only give Lisa a 5 out of 10? We're not going to give her the 10 out of 10 feeling today. How about just 5? And it works. Parts are like, okay, I'll dial it down today. I won't come in full guns blazing. So we can also ask Heart to just not, can you not overwhelm Lisa today? We're just going to give her a 5 out of 10. And they comply. And it's a nice way to start to gently learn, I can handle this feeling, this sensation now.
Yeah.
And that is,
For people who won't see the video, who will just be listening to the audio, can you explain what havening is? Because I saw what you...
Okay. Gosh, see, I don't actually know. Maybe you know more than me about havening. It's something I just recently learned about. So I think it must relate to the polyvagal theory and this system of self-soothing. So I had my hand in my heart space on your thalamus and just rubbing in circles, feeling like a deep, it's called proprioceptive pressure on your chest, or opposite arm on opposite shoulder, just rubbing downwardly. Is that... I'm descriptive.
I'm definitely not an expert on havening. I've heard of it and I've come across it and I've seen people do it,
but it's known as the mother's touch. So even if how would a mother hold a child, or what would you do to comfort a small child?
Yeah, so it's this like soothing technique to mimic that.
Yeah. And I think there's even one where you can wipe down your face. That feels strange to me, but whatever floats your boat. It's basically what feels soothing on the surface of your skin. But I think it actually works for a lot of people. And I know I even notice myself doing it now unconsciously. So I'm obviously soothing my nervous system all the time. So yeah, great question.
So much of our current day experience is the unconscious, right? And whether you pull it 49% or what, we go into the default mode and we're just in this autopilot space so much of the time. So who doesn't need support for therapy? Who doesn't? Would you just say everyone would benefit from this?
Yeah. If you want to be conscious. Yeah, no. Yeah, I know I'm being facetious. But yeah, I think that I was actually listening to something yesterday. And his name is going to escape me. I will email you and you can put it in the notes. But that being human is hard. There is no getting through this human life. And this guy described it as a cliff. Everyone has a cliff that you will ultimately fall off at some point.
Yeah.
So I think therapy is there for the cliffs that we will all inevitably face. And so when you get to one, he was talking to Oprah, and Oprah was describing her cliffs. If Oprah's having cliffs, girlfriend, we are all having a cliff. So it's like it's not bad that you're there. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
And through the cliff is the transformation. There is no growth without suffering. A favorite analogy is the rounds of caterpillar. And my colleague and I will sit there, we'll go, does anyone, if we could call the caterpillar as it's transforming into a butterfly, like that is painful.
Yeah.
Like you literally, I think it goes from some like gelatinous substance to turn into whatever butterfly wings are made out of.
Yeah, they're called imaginal cell. They're cells that they don't exist until the metamorphosis process, and then they like reimagine as the butterfly.
And that sounds nice, but I reckon it hurts. My face, imaginal cells. I'm going to use that. I like that.
So from
everybody needs that, right? Yeah.
I think we do. In like when we look at someone's astrological chart, every single person has parts that are going to be easier and parts that are going to be more challenging. No one arrives into this lifetime with just a perfect, easy path. Everyone's going to have some red lines in their path. They're going to have some conjunctions. Like we all have the same planetary influences. It's just a question of how they're interplaying with one another, where they land in the chart, what aspects are happening. And that's how it creates growth opportunities, tension, right? And
is that Chiron too?
Like Chiron is definitely one of them. So Chiron's an asteroid, and like the woman I studied with, she's actually an astrologer and a psychologist.
Yeah.
And she doesn't like to look at Chiron. And I think as far as her teaching goes, and I think that's just because you need to make sure that you're going to be able to support the person, right? Now, do you want to shine a light on runes? Here they are. It's going to a lot over and over and over in your life to get ready for it, right? So I think from an ethical standpoint, she doesn't teach her astrologers specifically to go into that so that you can make sure that your clients are protected, because not everyone has a longer history in psychology and knows how to support that. But
Yeah. Makes sense.
absolutely, Chiron's in there, and Saturn and Pluto. So those are our three strongest influences. So Chiron's the wounded healer. It is the wound we're here to learn. Saturn is where we're going to master responsibility, and we're being called to be disciplined in our life. And Saturn's probably one of the energies that we feel most prominently, in that it continues to hit our chart over and over. All of the planets do, but Saturn's a really strong influence. And people who know this 7-year itch, or like how we go through these 7-year cycles, that's because that's when Saturn's hitting a square or opposition within your chart. So you really feel that. And if you are on the right path, it will be a very disciplined time of life, but not necessarily hard, just really focused in mastering myself. And if you are not quite on the right path, then Saturn usually presents as a little bit more challenging and hard. And then Pluto is all about our soul's evolution. So those 3 points in a chart are very much,
Amazing. See, but I feel like I'm maybe weird, because I think when I hear it's going to be challenging and hard, it's, ooh, there's about to be growth. Yay! But I have what?
That's because you have set in planets and earth sign. The earth signs are like, give me the work, let me grow, let me know how to go, let's build. And because you've got both a Capricorn sun and rising, right? Capricorn is Saturn loves to be in Capricorn, is his favorite place in the zodiac, because Capricorn's here to be determined and disciplined and want to aspire for mastery, and Saturn will do it. I'm going to help you do the work.
Sounds familiar. And then I've got something in the house of transformation. I'm in the right.
You got 4 planets in the 8th house, and the 8th is all about transformation. So
House heavy.
Yes, that's right. So your 8th house heavy and earth heavy and Capricorn. Right. So you are here to do work. So surprising that you love see the hard. I could do this.
Trust me, I know the landscape is fun. It's so true. I think when I had my sessions with you, it was so validating, because I'm doing the right thing. I'm in the right career and it was not that I needed the validation, but I'm going to take it whenever that I felt more confident in myself and what I was doing, and to keep going, I think was very much resonant for me out of my time with what you taught me about my charts.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for all that you were able to show me and share with me and bring out of me.
Yeah. And Kristi and I worked together a couple of months back. And one of the things another thing that we look at is your North Node, which is your soul's path to enlightenment. And I said to Kristi, you are here to be seen. And she has her North Node in Leo. And so Kristi has since, at least I've seen on her Facebook, her dancing on the video and sharing a lot more. And really, I don't know how it's going for you. How are you getting a lot of comments from friends and colleagues and whatnot about what you're doing? Because I simply have been liking everything. I just wanted to say,
look, I have. And it's always fascinating, the people, when they'll be out and about, that will, obviously friends of mine that are commenting on it, and they'll talk to me about it. So it's created a lot of more conversations. And that was the whole drive behind it, is to share more broadly and widely with other people, to help, to serve, to share this message in a broader scale. So it's been lovely for people to see all the parts of me, talking about parts, but I would very much compartmentalize different parts of who I was, and it never felt great. So now just being one authentic boardroom with everyone just feels more easeful, less exhausting, trying to mask or pretend to not have these parts. And you recruit, I think you even said, I call in the right, I don't say the right, but the aligned people for me now. And they will self-select me now, because they know I'd love tarot, or I do astrology, or that I nerd out on lots of different things, and they will come to me to talk about those things. So I'm also attracting my tribe.
Amazing.
Which is lovely. It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that for you, because what my wish for everyone is to be able to do the things that light us up, to be fully own all of our parts, show up as all of our parts, and know that actually the more we are ourselves, the more we actually can shine our light in as again, you're very much service oriented because of how your chart is, right? But for you to be able to do the work you're here to do, it requires you to say fully and proudly, this is me, and know that the people who are meant to be in your world are going to see that and be like, oh, and then that gives them permission to be themselves. And it's just this beautiful ripple effect that flows on.
Yeah, absolutely. I met a colleague the other day for the first time in like a supervision club that I'm in. And he had said, you just put in the chat, like all your woo. And I'm like, yeah. He was like, I didn't know we were allowed to be that. And because he is, but closeted woo.
Yeah.
Like, so let it out. But so there are a lot of people that believe, I don't even like the word woo. That was the word that he used, that believe in all this stuff. And I think you talking about it, me talking about it, gives everybody permission to have all the parts of themselves to believe in whatever they like to believe in.
Yeah.
And there are no bad parts. That's literally the title, Schwartz's book, No Bad Parts. And that self-acceptance piece is huge. Yeah.
So that makes me go back to a story. I can remember years and years ago saying something to my father, who is a Capricorn through and through as well, but he is religious, but he's not spiritual. And I was sharing with him that I'd had a reading, and that being a psychic reading, and his response was, I'm concerned that you believe in that. And my response back to him was, I'm concerned that you don't. I love that. But it took me actually a very long time to have that ability to reply with that. It was a little bit tongue in cheek and very much true that, hey, this is my belief. I know you believe I'm wrong for having that belief. And that was what I was conditioned to believe all growing up. And then when you begin to step more into your beliefs and realize, oh gosh, not everyone believes that there's nothing to this, right? There's actually more people believe in something else than not. And so just because my conditioning didn't open me up to that world, now that I am, for me to be able to articulate that helps me learn and experience with different people that if I didn't have the confidence to say how I feel, I'd be missing out on all of that.
Exactly. And then I'm always surprised the story that they have, because I'm sure you probably have talked about it, is like what opened it up for you, what opened up the possibility for you. And I'll often ask people that, why do you believe, is my next question. And there's always a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Circling back to original, like earlier in our conversation, is there's usually a story of something hard, something challenging, something really painful that opened this door to a different knowing.
Yeah, for sure. I've certainly alluded to some aspects, but I'll share a tiny story with you. I was actually reflecting this with my son the other night, and I'm finding that I'm more and more expressive with my children about my beliefs. I think up till recent years, I felt like, oh, they'll figure themselves out. And now I'm like, no, actually, I think it's important for them to have the balance of experience, because I know that I don't know anything, but I assume that from prior history that they're not getting that much exposure with their father, who they spend half their time with, that in the more esoteric space, the woo space, but that I want them to know that this is an option for them to consider as well, and that dad might believe this, or my parents might believe this, or their friends might believe this, but mom believes this, and this is just another way to look at the world. And I was sharing that when I grew up with a very conservative religious approach, where, like Noah's Ark existed, literally. And it was like, well, you don't know what you don't know. You know what you're taught. And so that's what I was taught. And then I went to a liberal arts college that had requirements to take religion. And my first year, so we're talking like I'm 18 years old, right? My Old Testament teacher was talking about the analogy or the metaphors of this and that. And I was like, oh, and of course, like for me, it was like, of course there are analogies. And I was like, oh, like that makes me feel so much better. Like, because before now I was kind of going like, how did that all make sense? How did they feel that boat? How did that work? Please. And so I remember like having a quick conversation with my mom, and she was like, oh, I wish they wouldn't teach you that. Like, because for her, that was confronting to hear, because her belief is not that, right? And so that was like the first chink in, And then when I moved to Australia, I joined a church and they had a program called Living the Questions. And the on the first night, they were talking about the analogy of the resurrection. And I was like, whoa, isn't that the whole crux of Christianity that like there was a literal resurrection? And I didn't say anything. And I'm just observing all of these people in the room. And I thought, oh, wow, like they're all nodding in agreement. And it took me from this split moment. I went, oh, wow, my understanding of the world was so small, right? Like we're talking just about Christianity, right? And so Christianity is actually no longer this. It's now like this huge pie wedge, not to mention all of the other world religions. And I was like, oh, you know what? I actually need to park all my beliefs and actually start learning for myself instead of just, it was that awareness that there was difference and that difference wasn't bad. So then it was safe to say, okay, what do I want to believe or what do I want to understand differently so that I can make more deliberate choices for myself? And I think that's what it all comes down to is, once you have a little bit of awareness, then you can be deliberate in where you go. So for me, I wanted to understand more. So I was then open to more. So when you started the conversation with where Schwartz has gone now, like where he's gone, I'm into all of that. I'm like, that sounds amazing. But the me 25 years ago was definitely not open to any of that.
Yeah. And I think I'm open to all the things too. Now it's what else is there? You get excited.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love hearing that story. And I love your face lights up when you talk about it, because I think that is exactly it. It's like almost like a whoosh. It's like this moment of knowing. And it's, oh, wow, my brain just literally expanded. I've just opened up this whole wormhole of possibility. And that's what I try to tell people too, is that it can be fun in the darkness. It can be, there's a journey through and finding out a lot more about yourself through whatever it is you're going through. It's a real journey back home to yourself. And it doesn't have to be always so heavy. There's a lot of expansion happening through that process.
So I imagine the clients that are attracted to you these days are either closet woo people or maybe don't even realize they would consider that, but they see that, and I presume your website reflects it some.
It does sometimes, but I don't know if people read it. I don't know. I'm a skeptic. I think the right people find me and they might not even know. I'll get super woo with you. I just think the universe puts the people in front of me that I'm meant to help. Yeah. And for a certain part of the journey, even, not even all of it. And so the client, sometimes they will hear about me and say, oh, I heard you do tarot cards sometimes, where I'm like, yep. Or it'll just be on the table. It'll be an offering. And some clients will be like, what's that? And I'm like, oh. So that's what they're called to it, I think.
Yeah.
Unconsciously. But I can't help but weave the spirit in at some point. But maybe more from a place, I might initially do it from more of an existential, like, why do you think we're here? What's often, I think, depression when clients come in is this emptiness because they don't have purpose or meaning, or they've lost touch with something vital, a life force within them. And that inevitably is, I think, will come up a lot with depression, especially like that profound sadness and feeling of being lost, like a soul lost. You were talking about Carl Jung earlier. I like James Hollis. He translate Carl Jung because he was like, what, 1940 or something, Austrian psychiatrist. His reading is very dense. It's very hard to get through. So James Hollis is I think he's still with us. Please, I hope, James. He is a beautiful Southern American man from Texas who is a professor and a scholar around Jung. And so he's my gateway drug to Carl Jung. And he talks about 4 pillars that we all need as human beings to have a good life. There's a belonging to self, so knowing who I am, and a deep relationship with self, a deep relationship with my community, with people around me, with the environment. Yeah. And then the 4th is connection to something transcendent, something beyond myself. And so these things, like you're saying, aren't new. This has been around for a really long time. So I will talk to people about those four things. Like, how are you with yourself? There's usually therapy to be done there. Community. Sometimes people are isolated and need others. Environment. We don't get into nature. We sit in offices and rooms under lights. And then the transcendent. So I'll work my way down that list and be like, what about something bigger than you? Inevitably, we will get there because I think it's a human question and it's a human problem that we need to face to have a meaningful, healthy, contented life. So those are the people when they find me, whether or not they know they're on that journey, maybe more after today, after talking to you, putting it out there, it's becoming more obvious.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
A mentor of mine just used her comment was word create world.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, that's really good because it does. Like you just putting it out here is going to create. I've always gone to thoughts create reality, and thoughts do create reality, but like thoughts are the initial, but then like actually speaking it out is really what's going to create. And so then people hear the resonance they are attracted to. Am I at that frequency? Does this land for me? And I have no doubt that more people will be drawn to this idea that there are these different components that we are not giving enough weight to, right? I know that my astrology lady talked about like just the four balancing the car. Like you need all four parts. Like you need to be balanced. It can't just be all the one thing or all another. And I think it's beautiful that you're weaving those four pillars in and you're bringing spirituality into a support that people don't know they need, but they're coming to that and realizing, oh, wow, I didn't realize I came for this, but that's actually why I've been drawn into this.
Yeah. And it's fascinating to follow along with the clients because it's not my idea of what that fourth pillar is, it's theirs. And so it gives them permission to figure out what that is. And I'm like the biggest cheerleader on the sidelines because there's many paths that lead to the ocean and, many rivers flowing there. And it's just, I'm giving them permission to find theirs.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. If you were able to give a young person any form of advice that they could take away and say, yep, I need to bring that into my life, what might that be?
Bring into their life a young person. What would I want them to know? I love that question. I guess what comes to mind, what pops in is this trust yourself, but like at that deeply profound level that you know what is right for you and that you have the capacity to cope. I think the two things when I work with young people is they don't do those two things. And we try to get back to that. Everything that you thought would kill you hasn't yet because you're still here. So I have a far greater grit and resilience than I know. May I believe in that. And then trust myself that I know what is right for me, even when it doesn't make sense for other people and it doesn't make logical sense. It's terrifying when you know that and you have to go against some major programming or what people wanted for you. But I tell them, this isn't going to go away. You can listen to it now. Yeah. And I wish I had. I would have saved a lot of time and money if I listened at 18 or 19. So it's that. Those two things would be my wishes for them.
Beautiful. And if people wanted to connect with you after today, to work with you or to pick your brain or whatever it might be, how would they best find you?
Just my website or email me. I'm pretty easy to find on Instagram.
And can you tell us your website?
So my website, KDY, like Kristi de Young, kdypsych.com.au. Instagram is Kristi de Young Psychology. You can watch me dance in my bathroom. As Anne-Marie said.
All right, I will pop those links in the show notes. And anyone who wants to follow up with Kristi or connect or watch her dancing in her bathroom, that's where you want to.
If it's still up, I might delete it. No.
Kristi, thanks so much for sharing with us today, helping us understand how we can be more open to the different parts of ourselves. If people want to go into this IFS journey or understand more about how to welcome in those exiled parts, to understand that there are therapists like you that can support them into stronger integration and welcoming in those parts that have been exiled and finding the path that is going to help their soul sing. I really appreciate your time.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
I love to start each of my episodes with a short grounding meditation. I do this both for my guest and for myself to help set aside the busyness of the day and to be anchored in a place of presence and grounding. So long as you're not driving, if you'd like to enjoy a quick grounding meditation, here's the one I offered today. So I'm going to invite you to either lower the eyes or allow them to shut. And just taking a moment to come into this present moment. As you're arriving, just taking a moment to notice what is present for you. Perhaps you can sense tension in the shoulders, chest. Perhaps you're noticing that the mind is thinking about what's come before this moment or what's coming after this moment. Just an invitation to really come into presence with this moment. You're feeling the weight of the body or chair supporting it. Noticing the sounds in the environment around you. Noticing how the breath is ever so gently moving within the body. Perhaps inviting in a slightly longer inhalation and exhalation. A chance to fully connect to the life force that is emanating us. And as you begin to settle in, it's helpful maybe even imagining your body as a sandbag and feeling every grain of sand settling and grounding you. We're just going to open up through our chakras, our energy centers, just to create ease with the information that comes through us and our connection to that is beyond us. They're just seeing golden white light entering through the crown of the head, through the third eye chakra between the eyes, traveling down through the throat center, the heart center, the top of the abdomen, our solar plexus, bottom of our abdomen, and our sacral, our root center, the very base of our spine, and then connecting down into the earth. And then bringing the attention to the center of the heart and imagining your golden flame. Maybe it's a brilliant white light or a diamond, however you see that soul aspect of you that flickers and shimmers and is always there to connect with. Perhaps as you just take in another long and slow breath in and out, inviting that attention to the heart center and inquiring in with the heart, what do I need to know in this moment? What is it that I am here to share? And then taking that wisdom that's always accessible to us, bringing it back into this present moment, noticing again the sound and the environment around you. Like gentle wiggle through your toes and smile on the face. And coming back. If you'd like to understand your natural design, you can start by downloading your free Align and Shine Energetic Blueprint at annemariegrace.com/unique. Then head over to Thriving Through Connection on Substack, where this work continues beyond the podcast through deeper conversations, shared reflections, and real connection. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you again next time.